Coming up next on Columbus Connection, we're going to talk about how you can leave a legacy and save lives. We'll also discuss ways that you can prevent kidney disease. Stay tuned. Welcome to Columbus Connection. I'm your host, David Britt, and today we're going to talk about leaving a legacy. Now, none of us are going to stay on earth forever, and when you leave here, when we talk about legacy, we often think about our kids, our grandkids, our children's children, but what about the people that you can save that are right here now? We're talking about organ donation. Now, don't leave when we're talking about organ donation, but it is very important, especially in the African American community, that we discuss this. Now, we're going to discuss it from both ways. How you can be an organ donor and what you can do if you're in need of an organ and how to prevent needing an organ. So we have a great panel here to discuss that. Dr. Chastity Reese, who is a primary care physician, and Dr. Tamara Huff, who is an orthopedic surgeon. So we're going to get right into it. Okay, welcome to the panel, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, let me also say we have all been vaccinated. We are all following COVID protocol, because that is still very much a thing, and we are still being very much cautious of it. So welcome to the show. So we're talking organ donation, and we want to talk about it from both sides. Now, Dr. Reese, you're a primary care physician, and you deal with people who deal with chronic kidney disease.
Yes.
First, what is chronic kidney disease, and how can we get it? How do we prevent it? Let's talk about that.
So chronic kidney disease is literally the abnormality of either the structure or the function of the kidney. Okay. And so one way to really understand and know, do I have this or do I not, is to go to your primary care physician in the first place. Also to get labs. Labs are very important. There's this thing that we call or say very quickly in our world of family medicine physicians or physicians in general, CMP. And this is the metabolic panel that we get. With that metabolic panel, there's this little lab called creatinine or GFR, which is the glomerular filtration rate. With these two labs, we can tell whether or not are you chronically or acutely in kidney failure. If those numbers are extremely high, such as 1.2 or greater with the creatinine level, or the GFR levels are less than 60, especially if they're down to 20 or less, then we get very concerned very quickly. And we'll refer you to see a nephrologist, which is a kidney physician. And they specialize in taking care of your kidney. Now, with that being said, there are a whole host of other comorbidities, basically a big word to say other diagnoses or medical problems that you may be having.
Okay.
Those to include hypertension as well as diabetes are two hugely different things, but they're very important because they also too play a role with our kidney.
We hear about that a lot. We hear about kidney disease, hypertension, and diabetes, and we hear about them all together. So they all play a role in kidney disease.
Yes.
In the African American community, is it hereditary, or are there things that we can do to prevent it?
So there are, that's a loaded question. Genetics do play a role, right, for hypertension as well as for diabetes. However, those things can be acquired, especially if we don't eat right, if we don't do the exercise, if we put on weight, excess weight, especially COVID weight recently, then you could definitely develop hypertension. You could definitely develop diabetes. You could definitely develop very quickly even chronic kidney disease or chronic kidney disease failure or end-stage renal disease. You've probably heard of that too.
Right.
Some people are on hemodialysis versus peritoneal dialysis, which are different ways of how to functionally take care of the kidney. Hypertension can be prevented if it's not genetic disposition by watching what you're eating, a low salt diet, as well as exercise. Now, as for the diabetes, same thing. Low fatty foods, low carbs, and exercise could help in many ways. Now, if you are able to do those things in thought, in theory, you should be able to not go down the road of chronic kidney disease or chronic kidney failure. Now, but if you're too past gone, right? If you've already been on the medications and you've been trying to change your diet and your exercise and your lifestyle, if you will, and unfortunately it's caught up with you, then we as a family medicine physician will refer you out to see a nephrologist, and they will help to take over the care of the chronic kidney disease failure and hopefully keep you from going to a chronic kidney disease stage 4 or 5.
Okay.
Now, I know that's new because we haven't talked about that, but there are 5 stages of chronic kidney disease. And so what you like to keep the patient at is at least chronic kidney disease stage 1, 2, or 3. But once you come to 4 or 5, then they have to watch a video or more and to discuss maybe possibility preparing to get on the hemodialysis versus the peritoneal dialysis treatment. And what we're discussing about today is for potential, transplants and things of that nature to get a new kidney, is you try not to put them on dialysis and try and catch them in enough time before they get there.
So before you get to dialysis is when you're looking at getting a transplant?
Well, if you have a GFR of 20 and you might be a diabetic or a hypertensive patient, the family medicine physician at that point should be taking care of the blood pressure with the blood pressure medications if the patient is compliant with taking them. And the patient should be compliant with taking the diabetic medications. If we can help treat the blood pressure as well as the diabetes and keep them at bay with an A1C less than 7 and blood pressure hovering around for an age of 65 and above, 150 over 90 or less with the medication, and if they're under the age of 65, staying about 140 over 90 or less with the medication, then technically you should be okay with the kidney. It should not be getting worse.
Gotcha. If you get to the point where you do need a transplant, what are the steps that are taken?
So the steps that are taken for a transplant at that particular time, hopefully the patient should be with a nephrologist and should be getting all the different workups, right, with their labs and making sure that they are a great candidate for their criteria in order to become a good patient for it. If you're already on like chemotherapy treatment for like a cancer and or you're doing drugs and such things as that, you may not be a good candidate for that.
Gotcha. What is the way? We hear about people who are waiting for kidneys or waiting for a donation. How many people do you know are in need of a kidney or other donations?
Well, the highest percentage of African Americans for kidney disease right now is at 33%.
Wow.
That's at the nation. So the percentage of how many people that you have every day that are on this kidney list, I can't give you the exact number at this point in time, but I can definitely tell you that it's an alarming rate.
Right. So we definitely need more donors, and especially from the African American community, because we make up so much of the need.
Yes.
Wow. And switching gears, Dr. Huff, you're an organ donor.
Yes.
And you're an orthopedic surgeon, so you're a physician, and you're also an African American woman. Now, in the black community, there's a lot of trepidation about, one, just the medical field in general, but especially in donating organs. Why did you choose to become an organ donor?
So I'm going to clarify your question a little bit to say that I have signed my card to be an organ donor.
Gotcha.
So one of the things about becoming an organ donor is you have to elect or choose to do that. That's something that you can sign up for when you're getting your driver's license and things like that. I chose to do it because, and it's cliche, but you can't take it with you. So why not leave a little bit of goodness behind you? And as a medical physician, we see so often how much good can come from it. So typically when we talk about organ donations, most people are thinking about kidney donations, of course, lungs, your heart can also be donated. But the things that I see as an orthopedic surgeon are your tissues and your bones. So that's also something that you can donate as well. And that's where really the multiplier effect can happen. So you're not just helping one person, you're helping dozens of people when you start getting to those parts. And what's great about it is you can specify what parts of your body, if there's certain things you just don't feel comfortable about donating, you can always say that ahead of time. But I really thought that it's a chance to do so much good.
Yeah.
And we don't think about it, but when you're having an ACL reconstruction in your knee, in many cases we use what's called an allograft, which is actually a piece of tissue from a deceased individual. Or if your own bone isn't strong enough and you have osteoporosis, which means just thin bones, and you break a bone, if we don't have enough bone when we get in there, we have to use an allograft that comes from someone else. So you really are giving the gift of life to so many other people with that.
Right. And another concern is people think that if they just go to the hospital, if they look like they may not make it, no one's going to revive them. They're going to just come and just start taking stuff. You're going to want to save their life. The physician is going to do everything in their power to save that person before it gets to that point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is such a common misconception right now with everything that's going on and trepidation about the vaccine, trepidation about Tuskegee experiment, Henrietta Lacks. There's all these stories, especially in minority communities, that is it safe? Does the healthcare system really support me? Are they really looking out for my best interest? And
Right.
I can tell you, even though I'm not on those front lines now, during where I trained at down in Louisiana, we were one of the biggest transplant centers in the country. And we did everything possible to save your life. That conversation does not happen in the emergency room. It honestly, I would say it doesn't really happen until everything else has been exhausted. And to be quite honest, it happens way, way before all that. When you make that decision, when you sign the back of your ID card, and we're not checking the back of your ID card when you come in the ER. So I say all that to say is you're going to still get exceptional care regardless of whether or not you're an organ donor or not.
Gotcha. And it's interesting because, of course, in the African American community, that feeling that the medical system is against them. Okay, go ahead. Oh, the feeling that the medical system is against them, but it's us that need to be giving donations to help those in need. So the more that we give and donate, the more that we are helping someone who ends up on that table or who ends up in that room that needs that heart, that lung, that tissue.
Absolutely, because whenever you're trying to get, especially if it's an organ donation, you have to be a match. Yeah. So the chances of you having the match are the best if it's somebody that's a family member, that's genetically closely related to you. But also, too, we do know that there are some other things that can make you more genetically compatible, and race is one of those.
I would like to.
Oh yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I didn't know the number at the time, but I know it now. So while there are 100,000 Americans awaiting for a transplant, kidney transplant to be exact, only 22,817 Americans receive it.
Wow.
And that's just in the past of 2020.
Wow.
And so while these people are awaiting, there's usually 12 people that die every day waiting for a kidney transplant. So that's why this is very important.
Wow. And if you've ever been on there, if you ever had a loved one that is waiting for an organ transplant, you know that feeling of constantly waiting, constantly praying, constantly wanting that call. So it's so important that we get on the front lines and on the other end of that and help out. We're not going to take it with us.
Right.
We're not going to need it. And we can be saving so many people. This is a legacy that you're leaving behind, helping so many of your fellow people that look like you that are in need.
Right.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking to an organization right here in Columbus that's helping with this great issue. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Sharnae Ware, Executive Director here at Keep Columbus Beautiful. Columbus, we've got a problem with litter. Illegal dumping and litter causes an increase in blight and a decrease in property values. Litter can be an eyesore and aid in crime, and not to mention, it's illegal. Why should you care about litter? Let's count the ways. More than $10 million in labor are spent picking up trash citizens throw on the grounds of our beautiful state of Georgia. Studies show that 80% of that trash is generated on lands and ends up in our waterways, which threatens our marine life. So please, do the right thing, Columbus. Do not litter, or you will pay the price. How you can help? You can report any offense of littering to 311 by providing their tag number, a vehicle description, and the location where you saw the litter take place. So, Columbus, let's do our part and help keep Columbus beautiful.
Automated recycling collection is coming to Columbus. Let's get rolling.
The new automated curbside recycle service starts May 10th, and we want you to get rolling.
It's as easy as 1, roll your cart and place it on the curb with the wheels touching the curb. 2, make sure your cart is 3 feet from any obstacles. 3, do not contaminate your recycling cart with any styrofoam, plastic bags, food, or liquid.
Remember, City of Columbus, automated recycling collection begins May 10th. Let's get rolling.
For more info, download the Columbus GA Recycles app.
Welcome back to Columbus Connections. We are talking organ donation, and we're talking about it from the legacy that you can leave and also how to prevent having to end up on that list. Now, there's an organization in Columbus that is working in this area because it is so needed for so many people in our population. I have with me Ms. Kendra Wright. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
You are a veteran. You are an alumnus of the show.
I
Welcome
know.
back. How you been doing?
Pretty good,
How
thanks.
has last year been? Since we've talked, the world has just gone crazy.
It has.
But we're back. We made it.
I know, it has. You know, we have been virtually trying to just get the word out about organ and tissue donation the best we can.
Yeah.
So lots of webinars. So we're excited to be able to get back out there hopefully soon in the community and really doing our grassroots work that we do to get the word out.
Wow, April is National Donate Life Month. So going into it last year, when everything just went crazy, and now we're still in it, but we're in a better position. And there are so many more people that have this need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so this is definitely a time that we bring awareness to the importance of organ and tissue donation and why we, especially as African Americans, need to become organ and tissue donors. I always like to say there are about 5,200 men, women, and children in Georgia waiting for life-saving organs. The majority of them look like you and I, about 64%, and the majority of them are waiting on kidneys. And
Wow.
that's important because as Dr. Reese touched on previously, you are more likely to match with someone of your same ethnicity or within your same family unit.
Right.
So it's important for us to register. We are the most in need, but the least likely to actually register to become organ donors.
Now, speaking of registering, tell us about LifeLink of Georgia.
So we are the organ procurement organization for the state of Georgia, and what that means is that if you are an organ donor, we are the organization that will work directly with your family to retrieve your organs.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Now, when you say that, and some people are just joining us and they heard retrieve organs and they just went completely left.
Right.
But if you're just watching us, or if you need to hear it again, we're talking about the importance of organ donation in our community, that you're really leaving a legacy behind because so many of us are in need. Dr. Huff, you were talking about, you are an organ donor, you're also a physician, you're also a black woman, and the importance of people who look like us donating organs. Tell us again about why, well, talk about why people are so, held up about it, but what to expect and why it's so necessary.
So again, I am signed up to be an organ donor. I have not, no organs have been taken yet. One of the great things about being an organ donor is it's a legacy that you can leave. So many people have a misconception given the trauma that people of African descent have gone through in this country in regards to the Tuskegee experiment, as we talked about earlier, Henrietta Lacks, even the questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. Just remember that no one is taking your organs without your knowledge, without your family's knowledge. This is a discussion you should have with your family many, many years in advance to discuss what do I want. So it kind of goes back to the idea of having a living will or having advance directives. All those things are just explanations that you can share and leave with your family members so they know exactly how you want to be cared for and what medical procedures you're consenting for and what you don't want. And when we talk about organ retrieval, that is a procedure. So this is a decision that's not made in the emergency room. It is not made on the way to the hospital. Right. It is made after all other things have been exhausted. And one thing that Kendra will be talking about is there's some organs we have to take a little bit sooner than others. So when we're talking about organs, if we take your heart or your lungs or your kidneys need to be donated, those are things that need to go pretty quickly. But there's so many other things as an orthopedic surgeon that we even use that you can be a blessing or can give that gift of life to so many other people.
Now,
So
Kendra,
just,
oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say, just to add to that, you know, one organ donor, I think you mentioned this previously, that with tissue, for example, you can save many more lives. So we say you can save up to 75 lives if you're an organ and tissue donor, because you have 8 organs that you can give. You know, as Dr. Huff alluded to, you can give your bone, your tendons, your ligaments, lots of things that orthopedic surgeons use in surgery, actually, to help, instead of using, I don't know the correct terminology, but it's better to have actual living human, I'm thinking bone versus something that is not. Is that
But
correct?
if you don't have that option, I mean,
Right.
and that's what's so powerful about this is, yes, it's great to take your own bone and tissue, but things that people don't see in the background is if you don't have enough bone in the area, we may need to bring in what's called an allograft, which is bone from a deceased individual to reinforce that bone. That's very common in people that have very brittle bones, or pelvic type fractures where we have to add bone in there. So that's something that we as surgeons try to plan for, but having the ability to have that is crucial to being able to have successful surgeries in the future. And sometimes you don't know that until you get in there. So having the tendons available to do knee surgery or to do ankle surgeries, it's so much more than what we normally think of traditionally.
Right.
Let's talk about statistics. How important is this in the African American community?
Oh, huge, because we make up the majority of people waiting in general in this country. I think there are 90,000 people in the country waiting for kidneys alone. There will not be enough deceased donors to go around to fill the need. So living donation is another topic that hopefully maybe we can come back and touch on another day, but that's going to be a topic that you're going to hear more and more about because, like I said, there are just not enough deceased donors to go around. And as African Americans, we're going to have to, step up to the plate, put our issues with the medical community aside, because, if we don't do it, there are people that are going to die waiting. And I always say it doesn't affect you until it affects you, until it's your mom or your sister or your cousin or your brother who's in need. You don't really think about it because no one walks around every day, thinking about this topic. I did want to touch on just a little bit about the process. So with LifeLink of Georgia, so if you are an organ donor, what happens is that we have family care coordinators that they come in, they talk to your family. They either, advise you, hey, your loved one was an organ donor. That's why we say, please tell your family, because otherwise, they may be in shock, right? When they learn, and we don't want to be in a situation as an organization where you're saying no, but your loved one said yes, and it is really a legal binding document that you've signed, and we want to respect that person's wishes. After the process of working with that family and they say yes, then we have nurses on staff that actually are with that patient, doing all types of tests to determine what organs they can actually give. Then they go back and they tell that family, hey, this is what your loved one can give. At that time, if they have not designated what organs they want to actually give, the family can decide. They can then give tissue as well as eyes. We actually at LifeLink of Georgia do retrieve the tissue, and then the Georgia Eye Bank will come in and retrieve the corneas. So if one person wanted to do all of those things, obviously that's a process. It can delay a funeral. So oftentimes people may say, yep, you can have the kidneys, but no, I don't want to do tissue or eyes because they're trying to get their loved one buried quickly.
And you mentioned funeral. Another misconception is that people cannot have their final services the way they wish. That you can still be viewed in your final services. That does not change when you decide to be an organ donor.
Absolutely, it does not. You can still have an open casket funeral. We will ask questions, will they have a long sleeve shirt on or a short sleeve shirt on or a V-neck, so we know where to make incisions. If you want their arms folded, we won't take bone, for example, from their arms. So we do ask questions to ensure that that patient can actually still have, that open casket funeral.
Gotcha. Now you are with LifeLink, but you're also a Link. You're a member of
Yes.
Links, and all of our panelists today are a member of the Links Incorporated, and you all do great things for the community.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about Links.
Sure. So the Links organization is a national organization. We have about over 400 chapters in the country, and we work in various what we call facets throughout the year: health and human services, the arts, services to youth, national trends and international trends. And we really are today kind of focused on our health and human services facet. As you already heard from our previous physicians, we do several different things in the community as it relates to just getting health awareness out, this being one of them. We do have a national thrust called Linkages to Life, which is basically bringing awareness to the importance of organ, eye, tissue, and bone marrow donation, which is another topic that we don't talk a lot about in this community.
Yes. Yeah. How can people contact you to find more information, to become donors, to just know more about what needs to be done?
Sure. So if something you have or something we have said today has resonated with you and you want to become an organ donor, you can do so by going to www.donatelifegeorgia.org. That's www.donatelifegeorgia.org. Or you can contact me. My name is Kendra Wright, as they have already said, and my number is 706-566-0146. That's my personal number. You can reach out to me there anytime. I do go and speak to churches, high schools, civic organizations, barber shops, hair salons. We are wherever we need to be to get the word out about organ and tissue donation. It's vitally important in this community.
Absolutely. It's very important. You can leave a legacy. Let's not just talk about the problems with the medical community. Let's be the medical community. You can help. Thanks for watching Columbus Connections.